Hello, welcome back to Dial a Teacher. My name is Dimit Stanley, and I'm a science teacher here in Dade County. And Dial a Teacher has a new telephone number, and you need to learn both of them. The phone number for our television program is 995-2174. The telephone number, in case you want to have help with your homework, if you're in summer school, is 995-1600. That's 995-1600. So if you have any needs in which you need some teacher to help you with your homework in English, math, science, or social studies, we're here Monday through Thursday, 5:30 to 8:30. And of course, we're eager to hear from you. Tonight I have a guest with me, and her name is Carla Rivera. Hi. And thank you for coming, Carla. Now, Carla has brought with her an interesting animal that we're going to talk about as an example of the class Reptilia. I'm having some problems with my paper here. We'll have to use a new system to keep it up. Why don't we show everyone the animal that you brought in, Carla, as a good example of this class Reptilia. Okay, why don't you tell us something about him?
Okay, this we called him Ernie, and we bought him about 3 months ago. He's a chameleon.
Okay, keep him right there. We've got a good picture of him. And how big does, keep him very, very still, how big does this chameleon get?
Oh, he's just going to grow up to about 6 inches. He won't get very big.
That's the body length from nose to tail?
Right.
Okay. And this is an African chameleon, and most of the chameleons of this type, which don't look at all like the ones here in Florida, have a different body design, different eye structure, different foot structure, different design for their shoulder bones. That entire set of bones in the front end of the animal are entirely different and close together, not like typical lizards here in Florida. It's a lizard, but he's built a little differently. But he's a good, easy to handle example of class Reptilia. You can watch his eyes move around there when he comes out from behind the branch. He moves very slowly, but each one of his eyes moves independently. And we'll get a chance to look at that probably in a few minutes. Ernie is a very easy to maintain pet, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
What do you feed him?
I feed him crickets. We buy crickets at the pet store, and he just eats about 2 a day.
2 a day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
So
drinks lots of water.
Lots of water. Okay, and how do you maintain him? Where do you keep him?
Well, we keep him right here on this plant. We keep that in a room, and he just walks around all day. Sometimes we'll put him in the living room. He'll walk around the sofas, walk on the screens, on the window screens. He looks for bugs everywhere.
Oh, he does?
All the time.
He's always searching for bugs.
And then he's always sleeping, too, so he sleeps a lot.
Okay. All right, he eats quite a bit then.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's good. So we're going to let Carla take Ernie out of his tree here, and we're going to look at him again in a minute. He's a very docile little animal. They're not dangerous at all. She's going to hold him, and we're going to move the tree so that we can use our chalkboard to talk about a few of the characteristics of reptiles. Now, let me fix these magnets. They're not holding at all, so we're just going to switch them around and put them on the front so the whole thing doesn't fall. All right. Now, today we're going to talk about reptiles in general, and almost every child who's ever looked at a book with reptiles in it is particularly interested in the dinosaur-type reptile. Ernie kind of looks like some sort of dinosaur with the horns on his nose and his scaly back and his ridge down the back. But all reptiles have some characteristics in common that we want to talk about. So we're going to talk about just general characteristics of reptiles. Now, Ernie is a good example because he has the type of skin that reptiles have. It is a waterproof skin. Now, this is a big advantage over an amphibian. An amphibian loses water and gains water right through the skin. So that means that very few amphibians do well in the desert unless they can hide and stay in the moist soil underneath the ground. Lizards do wonderfully in the desert. In fact, the desert's full of lizards, reptiles like snakes, and Gila monsters and so forth, because they can maintain their water balance by not losing any through the skin. And I don't know if you can see that Ernie is in the process of doing something that lizards do with their skin, and that is shed. There are little patches, that's right there, I think you can see.
It's right there.
There's a couple little loose pieces of skin here. The rest of his old skin has already come off, and there are a couple small places where the old skin has not come off. It's sort of whiter right around you can actually see it rather well across the top of the head here. And that will eventually come off too. So they shed their skin on a regular basis as they grow. And snakes look like their skin looks like a sock that's been turned inside out. So they actually snag it on something, and as they move past something, if they pull it off, and when they finish, it's an inside-out skin. Okay, Ernie's going to wander around now on Carla for a minute, and we're going to write down some of the characteristics of reptiles. Now, the first reptilian characteristic that we have written down, let's write our group first, reptiles, is the scaly skin. Now, this is, as I mentioned, is a tremendous advantage. This gives reptiles that waterproofing that they need. It is also able to thicken, and by the thickening and by the plates that they can develop on their skin, offers more protection than, say, a frog would have on his really soft skin. If an animal bites into a crocodile, the teeth often don't even go through because the animal is so tough. If it bites into a frog, it's no problem because the animal has none of this bony, hard protection that often develops in this hard, scaly skin of the reptiles. He's really cute. Okay, so this is impermeable. To water. That means they don't lose it nor gain it through their skin like frogs do. And they're going to also, they have to shed it. They will shed their skin, as Ernie is doing. Now, this scaly skin and this impermeableness, therefore, dictates where these things can live and where they cannot live. So this opens up whole areas of the world that can contain lots of reptiles and would not contain other animals. Let's take a look at the globe for a minute, and I want to demonstrate a couple of things about these animals. As we look at a globe, especially one like this that has color patterns that indicate the types of climates that are there. For example, let's look at Australia. Australia has a major portion of it that is pale in color here. Very pale color. This central portion is all desert. It is full of reptiles. There are not as many amphibians in this region. In fact, there are a lot of mammals have to be careful in a desert region because they can become overheated. They do lose water too easily. So snakes and reptiles, lizards, not exactly like Ernie, but other species of lizards would do very well in this environment, as well as inhabit the forests and green areas around it. So they're not limited by the dryness of the environment. Now, one of the things that we haven't mentioned so far that also can be shown on the globe is the range in which you find reptiles. You will never find reptiles at the North Pole. And if you think about that, the North Pole has a climate that is very, very, very cold year-round. Now, if you think about one of the characteristics that reptiles have, that will tell you why reptiles are not found much above the border, let's say, of Canada and the United States. This is about 50 degrees latitude north, and above that the climate is far too harsh. And if there's a mountain range, it may be even further south they'd be found. Now, the same sort of thing holds true for the southern half of the hemisphere, that while the equatorial region up to 50 and maybe even down to 50 degrees south are going to be warm enough to accommodate reptiles. Below that, they can't survive. And most of Africa is within this region that they can live. So the entire continent of Africa is covered with reptiles, and that's where Ernie's from. In fact, Ernie is from a region just south of the equator along the eastern coastline of Africa. So he is an East African species, and most of the species of chameleon that are shaped like Ernie come from this region of Africa and the neighboring island, which used to be called Madagascar or the Malagasy Republic. These two areas are where they're found. And now this is not a desert region, so he's not a desert animal, and he needs more water than a lot of lizards might need. So he's a good drinker, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to show that probably a little later, and Ernie has some interesting apparatus for drinking water. Now, the characteristic we were talking about here, we showed some deserts, and we showed a latitude range that limits reptiles. That's because they're cold-blooded. The word cold-blooded can be written another way. Okay, poikilothermus is the same thing as cold-blooded, except it's the more correct scientific term for it. This means variable, and this means temperature. So reptiles are poikilothermus. That means that as this room warms up, Ernie was in a cold room a minute ago, and Ernie's body temperature was quite cool, and he turned a pale yellow color. Now that he's in the hot lights of this room, he's beginning to turn darker. So one of the things that chameleons do that we used to think it was strictly changing color by the background color, whatever color they're on, they're going to turn that color. That's true of flounders, which are fish. But for Ernie, it may be more related to temperature. And as we can see, he's a darker green color than I think when you first saw him. He was still chilled from being in the cold air-conditioned room next door, whereas this room is quite hot with all the lights. So he's getting darker. He may even get darker than this. Is that right?
Yes, he will.
Okay. Does he? What is the darkest color he gets, Carla?
Black.
Black?
Almost black.
Almost black. Okay. And when he's almost black, what kind of behavior is he exhibiting?
Well, he's very calm, and he doesn't like to move. He just stays black.
Okay, he stays black. He's not active when he's black.
No.
Okay. When he's pale yellow, is he active?
Well, I haven't really noticed the difference
Okay.
when he's pale, but one time he was left in the car for quite a long while, and he turned very pale.
He was overheated, I guess.
Yes, he was.
Okay. Now, some people might see you with the gloves on and be concerned. Are you afraid Ernie's going to bite you?
No, Ernie doesn't bite.
Right.
Not at all. He's very safe. It's just that he has little nails that I'm just a little allergic to.
Okay, so they scratch you.
So they scratch.
Okay, and I don't know if they can, he's moving quite a bit now in the heat. I don't know if we can show his nails because if we hold real still, Ernie might not be still though, we might be able to show those little toenails that are on his feet. He doesn't have normal looking feet, does he? Lizard feet look more spread out like our hand, and Ernie's does not. His is divided right down the middle with 2 fingers on one side, 3 on the other. That gives him an advantage when climbing a twig or a branch on a tree that other lizards don't have. He's got a better grip. He's reaching for something, trying to find something to hang on to. He's got the best visual setup of any lizard also, because he can see in front and in back and above and below, and different with both eyes he can look at different things at the same time. So he has a tremendous advantage, but he needs it because he really is a hunter. If he were in Africa, he would be going up and down twigs looking for his favorite food. Since he's not a plant eater, he has to stalk his prey, which would be insects of all kind. Right now he's searching and hoping he's going to find an insect in here. Not likely, is it?
No. Sometimes we just let him out in the backyard whenever we don't have crickets.
Right.
And he'll just go on looking for flies or mosquitoes, whatever he can get him.
And does he sneak up on them or does he run after them?
No, he does sneak. He sneaks like this.
Really
just
slow,
like that,
just
right
like
through
that.
the grass.
Okay.
And sometimes he'll see things that I didn't even see and just shoot out at them.
Okay. How far away does he have to be to get his prey?
His tongue can reach about 3 inches.
3 inches?
Pretty long.
Okay, good. All right, that's pretty neat. So actually he doesn't have to grab the animal with his mouth. He
No.
only has to just stick his long tongue out, and his tongue will be sticky, correct?
That's right.
And it sort of sticks onto the bug, and the bug is going to come with that tongue when he pulls it back into the mouth. He's fascinating. I don't know if we can see the armor he has on the top of his head real well. Why don't you turn him so the front of his face can be seen? There are 2 horns coming forward. I don't know if you can distinguish them because they're, it looks like one, but if you tilt his head down sort of, that you can see there's
There
a
you go.
division between the horns. Great. And this indicates that Ernie is a male. The females don't have these horns. The males use these to fight with each other. They don't really hurt each other much, but they lock horns and push each other around on the branches because they're territorial. Each little male of this species would figure he owns a certain part of the territory he's in, and the other males had better stay out of it, especially in breeding season, and which for him is going to be probably in November because he's from below the equator and they have their seasons reversed. So they don't have their